Welcome to episode 89 of Beer with Strangers. I'm your host, Tony Russo, and I'm joined this week, as I'm joined each week, by Doug Griffith.
Well, hello, Tony.
Hello.
And welcome to the shop. Give my weather report, which is usually the first thing we hit today. It's sunny and for these times, hot. It's supposed to be approaching 80 degrees today with lots of sun. So it's very unusual for this early in March to get this warm weather.
Yeah, it's pleasant though. I mean, I'm not complaining. I am worried. I'm already starting to worry about my fig trees though, because my fig trees this is what happened last year. It got real warm.
Come out from prematurely and then get hit by frost.
Right. So I went out and I got a bunch of great big plastic garbage bags.
Oh, they're covered?
And not yet, but if there's frost in the forecast, my wife takes good care of the forecast. She'll tell me, you got to go do the figs, or at least that was her plan. Great week this week. Lots of stuff to talk about. Before we get to what we posted, I do want to talk a little bit about the HMRA home show, because you were there and I was there.
Yes.
And so what did you think? What did you guys do?
Mostly I would went around and talk to the different breweries. So it was interesting. We did have a little bit of taste of some of the foods they had, but had good sausages, and I had some like dumplings, the raviolis.
Right.
So just see what the different suppliers are supplying. So you can find almost anything you want for a restaurant or hotel there. So it's the whole idea. But the craft breweries are all out. I got to see, of course, Dogfish was there, Fin City, Assawaman, Back Bay, Miss Pillion, Third Wave, Roar were the main ones, I think, that were there, and I had samples of.
Who's Back Bay?
That was the old one's in Ocean City.
Oh, Backshore.
Backshore. I'm
all
sorry.
Right. That's okay.
Sorry, Backshore. Wrong name.
That's okay, because I saw in the news this week, just yesterday or today, that another brewery has opened or has gotten clearance to open in Lewis. In a church.
Right.
Do you know those people by any chance?
Don't know them, but I've been following the story. There was some community outcry because they were going to be using the church property, but I guess that's all been resolved.
Right.
So,
well, it was interesting to see. I had a nice time. We gave a little bit of a talk about why businesses should buy craft beer, and and how it can increase profits as well as taste.
And you got more things to taste, better things to taste.
More and better things to taste. But the thing that I was going to mention, and I chickened out because that's not where my butter happened to be being breaded on that day, is this idea of restaurants starting to brew their own beers and have house beers. We did talk a little bit about house beers, but we talked mostly about like Tropic Ale and who else? There are a couple restaurants that have contracts. Like Evo makes one,
right,
and then I think Ocean City Brewing Company, or
does some for the local restaurants.
Does some that it's a restaurant exclusive. But we've spoken before about a local restaurant that is just starting to brew its own beer just for in-house consumption.
But they're called also brew pubs.
Right? Yeah, they're called brew pubs, but it can be done. I think people forget that it doesn't have to be on a massive scale. It can be done on a small scale.
Or you can have somebody brew it for you when you don't have to have the space or the want to invest in the equipment to have it on site.
And one of the things that Jason had mentioned about that is that the difficulty for the mid-size and smaller breweries is, if you're going to have your own house brand, you have to choose someone who can make that capacity. He said, Evo is a good choice, for example, for Secrets, because Evo can make enough beer for Secrets to be able to sell.
Right. And they have got, I think, one thing too is to be able to make the quantity that Secrets needs, but have the storage capacity, be able to store it so that it's in store, ready to go to the restaurant whenever they call for it.
Right. So, and they do sell that. I mean, I believe you can buy that in 6-packs. I believe they bottle that as well.
Oh wow! So that means even more capacity for the brewery to be able to support.
Right. It's tough, but good and exciting.
And if you have a brewery that has excess capacity, it's a good way to have income to take, just
to grow into it.
Right.
Oh, you know who does one? I believe Rubber Soul does one now because of their new capacity.
Oh,
I think
okay.
they're
Makes
doing
sense.
some for somebody. I had a Rubber Soul beer. I had their cream ale over the weekend, which was nice. It was a cream ale. And this is going to get us into our first topic. I'm becoming more and more interested in what you might call uninteresting beers,
like session beers.
Yeah, the
easy drinking,
beer. Right. There's not a lot to it, and that is okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the habanero blueberry porter that I had at Third Wave the other day. It was a very good beer, but it's nice to be able to say, you know what? I don't want to think about, because we went to Sikuli in Berlin, and we had pizza, right? And so you're having pizza, and at first I was like, yeah, they have a mediocre beer selection, which they kind of do. But so I started off with Cold Snap. Because my wife got the cream ale from and the Cold Snap. It's fine. Yeah. Is it cloudy on purpose? I mean, I'm usually not a cloudy guy, but
I'm not sure,
color.
But it could be. Yeah. I mean, it may be unfiltered.
Yeah, it was a weird color, and it was fine. But then the pizza came, and I said, you know what? Give me a 60-minute IPA because.
Well, I think it's interesting. You talk about cloudy beer when. They started making, went like that. Well, one Budweiser, not Coors, was making the orange beer.
The Shock Top.
No,
Blue Moon.
Blue Moon, yes. I think that was a big step for a brewery to go to a beer that wasn't perfectly filtered. That was an unusual step because it's all cloudy.
Right. So, well, they bought them. They bought them and then just didn't change them, I guess, was the aspect.
But that's a big step for a brewery to, especially one of the big breweries,
to leave it cloudy.
Right.
Yeah, and again, that's something. I'm not the type of person who's offended by a cloudy beer. Like some people are like, it's cloudy, they screwed up. And I feel like, they probably didn't screw up.
They may have more flavor because it's not filtered.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I don't turn my nose up at beers that are, and I don't even know if it was cloudy. If it could have just been a weird color. It was like
I think the Blue Moon's because it's got some wheat in it, so it's supposed to be cloudy.
But anyway, and then I just wanted an IPA. I didn't even want an interest. Like you said, I got the 60-minute IPA from Dogfish Head because I wanted to taste the pizza and I wanted something with enough of a sting to keep my tongue awake. But I didn't, I wasn't there. I was writing about the pizza, so I didn't want
habanero.
No, beer. Right, exactly. It wasn't appropriate. Although I'll tell you what, with a pizza, not the blueberry part, but with a pizza, I think a habanero beer would be fine.
Yeah, I just don't like some of them that are too peppery and they just cling to the back of your throat and don't go away. But maybe with a pizza, it would.
That's it. So
wash it down.
Usually, I put a lot of spice on my pizza, so I wouldn't have to. So blueberry porter with pizza, maybe not, but 60-minute IPA with pizza any day. And
sounds good.
The cream ale from Rubber Soul, it's gonna wash everything down nice and leave your palate relatively fresh. The reason I brought that up is because two of the articles we want to talk about this week have to do with home brewing, and as from now on, we're going to talk about home brewing right up at the top. So we don't forget to. so I don't go off on a rant and forget
or get sidetracked.
Right.
Something else.
And so one of the articles that I chose this week was an article that doesn't get written enough and probably ought to get written more, which is just reminding people how easy it is to get into home brewing. Did you get a chance to look at that at all?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, why do you want to homebrew? Well, it's because you become more familiar with the beers, you become more familiar with the taste of the beers, and you're able to even better evaluate the commercial beers.
Right.
So,
and it's not real expensive to get in, and it's not real hard to get in. And what Doug always says is, at the end of the day, it's still beer.
Right.
You're not gonna screw it up too badly. What are some of the things that people, if they're, I mean, obviously, if they're within driving distance, they should come here. But if they go into a local place, if they're listening from far away, what are some of the things they need to know going in?
Well, the main thing just is, as far as brewing, is keep things clean. But most homebrew shops have basic kits that, and most homebrew shops are all brewers or home brewers. So you get the local knowledge and have somebody to talk to versus an internet site where you can get some information, but it just don't have that person to talk to and interchange information with. You can still find, like I said, the information, but it's much better to have a conversation with somebody than just to read about it.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think that they might be gentler. We have a mutual friend who I see on Facebook often, just so frustrated because he goes into these forums as an expert, and like people aren't really as, the things that you say on the internet you wouldn't say to someone's face, especially when they could punch you in your face, right? And so I think people are nicer and they're more encouraging, and like nobody here seems to want to show off. You know, when you don't agree, you're like, oh, well, I don't agree, and here's why. You know, it's a simple back and forth, and it's a camaraderie back and forth. You know, it's people getting along and trying to find a better answer.
For online, it's more harsh, and you may not be so kind sometimes to something that somebody says.
Right, and you don't know who you're going to bump into here, but it'll be okay. You know, like the other day, I got an email from Mr. Passwater's. You know, the other day I've been wanting to write a story about, one of the local hops growers here. I just happened to bump into him because this is the kind of place that people who make beer and people who make the things that make beer and people who write about beer all kind of, this is the Venn diagram where we all kind of coincide.
And with that thought, we have hops rhizomes available for sale now. So
there you go.
From Mr. Passwaters.
I saw that online, and now it looked like you had a special kind that you said were more.
We thought so. We thought we were going to have some Sriracha, which are hard to get, and they just did not grow well. Didn't survive the winter, so we do not have any of those at this point in time. He thought he was going to have some rhizomes this spring, but when he got to digging, there was not a sufficient quantity to be able to sell any. He's going to use some for replanting, but he doesn't have enough to sell.
That's unfortunate.
But hopefully next year. So, but right now we've got Cascade, Columbus, Centennial, Magnum, and 1, 2, 3, Cascade, Centennial, Magnum. I don't know. There's 5 of them we've got right now.
There's 5, and here are the 4 that aren't the ones that he left out. And so let's talk a little bit about
Willamette. Sorry.
Oh,
that's the 5th one.
Willamette, damn it.
Yeah.
Yep. Was one of the things that homebrewers now have access to these hops, and it's I think easier to kind of grow your own hops, and there's a satisfaction in doing that. Do you find
that's part of the whole craft beer revolution. Be able to make good products, good beers yourself, and depends upon how things are, what's available locally. You try to use local ingredients, and that's what a lot of the breweries are trying to do these days. And I think case in point, we've got Jim Passwaters, who's growing these hops, and he's producing hop rhizomes for us to be able to sell to home brewers, as well as hops for some of the commercial breweries around. Also, we've got the Laurel Granary is now being converted to a maltery. So it's going to be producing local malts as well as imported grain into malt. So it's part of the craft beer revolution.
And do you guys grow malt? I'm sorry, do you guys grow hops here on the property? Have you ever tried that?
No, not been growing any yet. I had plans to put up a new sign out front sometime soon and put hops in around it. So I haven't put them in because I knew at some point I was going to be replacing that sign. I think it's about ready to fall over. So
need to do something. Replace it.
Yes, so I need to replace it. And at that time, I plan to put some rhizomes in and put them up to the top of the sign. So just to grow them up.
That's cool. And now they're called hop hills, but they're really more like vines, and they grow like.
They are vines. It's a root that grows, rhizome grows, and it sends vines up every spring. And in the fall, you cut them down and generally pull off the hop cones. And you can do it once, or you can do it throughout the season multiple times, which if you got the time, you generally get more that year or that way. And they're probably better quality because you're harvesting them as they mature.
And so nothing gets old and nothing
Right.
gets, nothing gets past its prime. So the other part of, we touched on a little bit, the other part of homebrewing being an important social thing. If you take a look at there was a story from, I guess it was Europe someplace. It was a London website, I guess. And they were talking about this secret homebrew club, and as if it was, I didn't quite get why they thought it was a secret or why they thought it was novel, but I thought it was cool that they wrote a story about a local homebrew club.
Sounds like what we've been doing for a while. So.
Right. You guys have been doing it almost 20 years?
Yeah.
25?
20 years. But they were talking about it. They have a local homebrew supplier, and I guess they have space or something above it, and that's where they were meeting.
Right. And
it's a small space, and a lot of people crammed into it, and a lot of them are scientists of some sorts. So they've got a lot of knowledge, and they're just exploring the different craft beers that you can make.
And I think that's probably kind of in pace with how things are going here, because we've talked about before how big American craft beer is getting in Europe. I mean, it's big in Europe, but it's getting huge. And so I guess following from that, you want to be able to make your own, American style craft beer.
Or your English or your German or whatever.
Right.
I think brewers and home brewers in general are getting more knowledgeable of what's available, because the quality of products have gotten better over the last 20 years. So you can make better beers,
and you get your hands on them more easily. Right. And it also, what we were talking about earlier, it starts to help improve your ability to taste regular beers. And one of the great lines from the story was something like, yes, after you run through all of the really aggressive flavors, you also get to appreciate the subtlety of, a nice Pilsner or a spicy Saison or something like that, where it's not hit you over the head.
Well, and I think some of the simpler beers are actually harder to make because there's not as many ingredients, and it's harder to hide off flavors.
Right, because if you have a very smoky beer, the smoke will punch you in the face, and you won't notice a little bit of bitterness in the back that you don't.
A Pilsner is just Pilsner malt, hops, and yeast, and the water.
Right, and so if there's enough flavor, there's no place for it to hide. Right. And along those lines, it makes you better at brewing, but it also makes you better at understanding what's involved with the process,
and also tasting,
and also more tasting.
It improves your palate.
The other thing that I was thinking about when I was thinking about you, in terms of this, is how often I say to you, I'll say, "Hey, I tried this," and you're like, "Yeah, I got to get over there," and it's like you don't get out as often as, because you've got so much great beer at work.
I mean, we've got plenty of what we test and what we make here in classes and have samples of. So I don't get out to buy much because I've got it here.
You've already got so much beer to drink. Now, do you keep a tap at home anymore? Have you?
Yeah, still got a tap at home because we still have the store going there. So we usually have a couple beers on tap there.
There are worse ways to spend a Saturday afternoon. All right, and so next up on the list, we are going to go back and talk a little bit more about the malt. We touched on it earlier, but we will have a malt house opening here in 2017, in about a year, and they're starting to experiment already with different grains to see which ones make the best malts, and which ones.
And here, meaning Laurel, Delaware, and it's only about, I guess, a mile from
where we're sitting.
Yes,
you can legitimately measure it in feet or yards.
And they're talking about being able to eventually do 25,000 tons a year, which is a lot of grain.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting situation in that what they're doing now is they're testing out which grains will grow when the proper crops aren't growing. So barley generally here has been used as a cover crop. And if you're not familiar with the term, what a cover crop is after the Dust Bowl, they learned you should put something down on top of the dirt. Otherwise, it could blow away when you're not looking. And if you get the right combination, the new crop, the winter crop, can actually replace nutrients rather than draw nutrients. So let's say that barley uses a lot of, I don't know, carbon. Chemistry is not my thing. And, soybeans use a lot of phosphorus, right. And soybeans use a lot of nitrogen. And so if you keep the crop in that kind of rotation, the soil gets to replenish one while the other one is drained from it. And it keeps the soil fresh, and reduces the need for using chemicals. And of course, stronger soil means stronger plants. Stronger plants tend to be pest resistant without extra spraying, if you can get away from spraying, or if spraying is something that you're nervous about. These are all the upsides. The downside is this isn't where they grow barley, kind of for a reason. We grow some cereal grains here, but we don't grow malting barley because it's wet and it's not as cold as it needs to be when it needs to be cold, and it's too hot when it gets warm. And so finding the right mix of
the right seed or the right variety is a big thing to find what grows well here.
And what's really complicated is it takes a year. So you grow the grain for a year, you malt it, and then you get to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then you have to plant new barley and try again.
Well, it's not a year. It doesn't take. I don't think it takes a year. When they harvest in the fall, they plant, and then in the spring they harvest the barley.
Right.
And then in summertime they're going to grow either corn or soybeans.
And then in the fall again.
Back to the barley or wheat during the winter.
But it's a cyclical process. It's not. But they're planting multiple strains, and they've been testing for a while. And I don't know if I mentioned this on an earlier show, but we have a local farmer here who's had some success with making okay barley. And that was kind of the sticking point. They make it Burley Oak, I think, still makes local or whatever.
Yeah, they get it, and I think they have to send it up to New York to have it malted and then and shipped back down. So that's a expense shipping both ways. So hopefully with the new maltster here, that'll reduce shipping costs for them.
Right. And but the other thing is that the barley wasn't fantastic. It was okay. It was acceptable. But that's just, but that's not, getting base malt isn't the problem so much as getting specialty malts. And I think that's where this new place is looking to go, because specialty malts are more expensive to make. So if you're making a test batch, you just want to see if you can get a base malt out of it. And if the base malt's only okay, then you feel like the specialty malt might not be worth the investment. Again, shipping it to, I think it may have been Massachusetts, but shipping it to wherever, shipping it 16 hours away or 8 hours away, and then waiting for it and shipping it back. It's a truck. You're paying the driver. It can get expensive. But here you can take more chances if it's just around, around the corner.
They may be malting it or growing it right out here in the fields we look over.
Absolutely.
So
the other interesting thing that I got from the article that I posted is they bought two places. I didn't realize they also have a place in New York that they bought. So they're starting up two malt houses at the same time. And it looks like the malt house in New York is already going. Yeah. It looks like it's already underway. So these people have had success with it. It's not merely an idea. We've done this once at a place that wasn't really known for barley and malt.
And I understand one of the reasons they bought the property here is because the silos are already there for storage.
Yes,
they have to build the malting facility, but the silos are there, which I guess is the big cost for the storage of the grain throughout the season.
Right, especially now, because they don't need fancy silos. They don't need in the West. They have silos that have to be able to withstand 10 years of down prices. They need to be able to hold it for a long time. The silos here are really just storage, as
seasonal
storage. It's not going to be like, oh, we're going to batten down because corn prices have dropped, so I'm going to fill my silo and hang on for 3 years and see if corn prices come back.
But I think they're going to have just the opposite problem here. The local stuff's not going to be available in large quantities. So I think they were going to plan to import a lot of the grains from Europe to at least get going,
And
and then convert to farmers, because they got to get convert to farmers from field type corn to malting, or field type barley to malting type barley.
Right. And that was when I spoke with them, that's exactly what they said. I said, what if it doesn't grow? And the woman that I spoke with at Proximity Malt said, well, we're making malt. I mean, we're not going to just throw our hands up and say, oh, we put $80 million into this and now we're not going to do it. So they're going to import as much as they need to get their malt operation up and running. And once it's up and running, hopefully they can continue to add in local malt. And again, every pound of local malt they can put out, it replaces a pound that they have to, or replaces whatever, 10 pounds that they have to import.
Right.
Because it's
and also don't forget, what they don't have to import, it means it's American made. Somebody here has grown it and
is buying beer with it.
Right. Buying beer with it, buying fuel, and buying everything else here locally.
Right. And so it's really a local economy strength there. And I'm so happy, only because that Laurel feed mill, and you can take a look at it online. I'm going to get a story up in the next couple of weeks. I want to get out there with my own personal photographer and get my own photos, but it is just an iconic.
But you can look at it. I saw it today on proximitymalt.com.
Right. So
just a few pictures.
Right. It's just what I want to try to do is I want to try to get inside, and get some photos of what's going on in there. And they said no, so I feel like this is one of those forgiveness rather than permission.
Go do it.
Yeah, they said, well, I don't think they're going to want to, but you should check with, but we don't have any objection to you taking pictures. Just check with the construction guys. So I'm going to pretend I didn't hear anything she said after. We don't have any objection to you going out there and taking pictures. So hopefully I'll get that story up in the next couple of weeks, and we'll get a good look at it. And that'll do us for this week. It's International Women's Month. Once again, we missed the Women Brew Day because it happened. I thought it would happen on like the 15th or whatever, but I guess it happened last week.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Anyway, we have a class coming this Saturday for extract brewing, 2 to 4 o'clock. So if you know anybody who wants to learn how to brew or needs to reinforce what they've learned in the past, we've got a class at 2 o'clock on Saturday. So call and let us know you're coming, please. And
so to tie that into the women's brewing, if you are a woman, you should come and brew.
Yes, by all means.
It's not a guys club thing. I mean, hell, Doug's wife runs the place.
Yeah,
and she's a woman
in Millsboro.
Yeah, but the opportunities there, and these classes are so much fun. That's how I kind of got involved with this. I'd come and hang around, and there's plenty of beer to just taste and get a sense of the different things you can do. And when you see, it's really, what's so attractive about it is it's really just hanging around, drinking beer while a pot boils, and you talk about how good what in the pot is going to taste once it's done being in the pot. And it's just a great way to spend that afternoon. I have a lot of homebrewing friends online, and you can see now that the weather's broken, everybody's putting up pictures.
It's brewing time.
Yeah, they're putting up pictures of their pots, and everybody's like, I'm brewing this week, I'm brewing that the other week. And it just looks like a fun community to be a part of because it is. And I've already got the spot for the guy who doesn't brew and just hangs around. So you guys are going to have to commit to being the people who come and do the brewing. But that's, I believe, it for this week. You have Saturday at 2. Do you know any in the future?
That's it for now.
Oh, and you have a wine event?
Yes, wine tasting coming up the following Saturday, the 19th. Yep.
And that should be fun. That's
so beer or wine.
That's an introduction to wine, though. You guys aren't making wine. You're just talking about it? Or
no, it's just a get together and talk. Hopefully it's all people who have made wine in the past, and we've invited everybody to bring a bottle of theirs, whatever they prefer, to share with everybody else. So it's just to get together and talk about wine.
It's very cool.
Or anything else that may come up.
Whatever happens to come up. Okay, and so until next week, the door is open.
Drink what you like and be happy.
Awesome. Thank you.